today. Is low fight IQ an epidemic going on in the UFC right now? Judging by Saturday night's card, it definitely could be. Also, what about Paul Craig? Did he have a game plan on Saturday night? Was his game plan to get flattened by Brendan Allen? I'm not sure. We're going to discuss that also. And what about the fighter that was twerking on the side of the cage on Saturday night? Did you see it? Were you aware? All of this and more on today's episode of Matter of Fact MMA. What's up? What's happening? Let's go. Shout out to the Louisville Cardinals. We just advanced to the ACC Championship, so holla at us. We went out there and put it on the Miami Hurricanes. I'm celebrating that win. Now, let's get into the UFC. Saturday night, we had UFC Vegas 82 go down at the Apex. Let's start out with the main event as Brendan Allen goes out there and submits Paul Craig in the main event. I mean, Paul Craig normally goes out there and he tries to throw his hands, he tries to throw some shots and hopes to knock his opponent down to the ground. If that doesn't work, then he generally will lure them in close and then pull guard, which he kind of tried to do against Brendan Allen, everything that I just described. I kind of thought Paul Craig goes in there with a game plan and then the game plan doesn't work, and so he's left with doing that. That wasn't the case. Not so fast. Because on Saturday night, Paul Craig went in there. Didn't really seem like he had much of a game plan. Looked like he was just hoping to knock down Brendan Allen, catch him off guard, which he didn't really throw a lot on the feet at all. And then when the fight eventually went to the ground, and it just seemed like Brendan Allen was just a step ahead. At one point, I believe Paul Craig, I don't know if this is the exact move, but it looked like he tried to lock up a calf slicer, and Brendan Allen never panicked. He stayed calm. He eventually went for a leg to transition out of that leg lock. So I mean, Brendan Allen was definitely a couple of steps, if not 1, 2, maybe 3, maybe 4, 5, and 6 steps ahead of Paul Craig at every turn in that main event fight. So he goes out there, he gets the win against Paul Craig, submitted him. I believe he submitted him in the second round. And so here we are, shout out to Brendan Allen. Had a cool walkout, came out to Lil Weezy, Lil Wayne, the Fireman. Big fan of that. Shout out to him for doing that. Says he wants a shot at anyone at the top of the division, wants the UFC to put that fight together. So I felt like that call out was appropriate for him. I don't feel like he needed to actually call out an actual person. So, that was kind of it. That was kind of what happened in the main event. I'm not sure where Paul Craig goes from here because, everyone knows if you've been watching mixed martial arts for long enough, the lower the weight class, the more technical it's going to get. So naturally, middleweight is going to be a lot more technical than light heavyweight. So, I mean, he's going down to middleweight, hoping to use his size to impose himself on these guys, but it didn't look like he's got enough of a game plan to be able to do that. And it looks like the middleweight might be a little bit too technical for Mr. Paul Craig. So I'm not really sure where he's going to go from here, if he's going to go back up to light heavyweight or what. But he needs to figure something out. But I will say, shout out to that lovely beard that Paul Craig is rocking. Big fan. Anyway, let's move on. In the co-main event, we had Michael Morales go out there and he defeats by decision Jake Matthews. This was a pretty cool fight. It was a chess match at points. Both guys seemed like they just really wanted to continue to stand. There wasn't going to be a lot of grappling or anything like that. And it was just kind of a chess match on the feet that Michael Morales, I do believe, got the better of Jake Matthews, as well as that's what was shown on the scorecards. So shout out to him. He's young in his career. He moves on. He moves forward. We'll see where the UFC is going to try to line him up. And Jake Matthews, he kind of stays where he's at. I'm not saying he lost a ton of stock with this because it wasn't like Michael Morales finished him. But, I mean, it's Jake Matthews. What are we going to do? Where are we going to go? You know what I'm saying? Anyway, moving on. We had Chase Hooper stepping in there with Jordan Levitt. look, I thought Jordan Levitt was going to be able to go out there and take advantage of Chase Hooper on the ground, but Chase Hooper, Chase Hooper, for one, looked like he'd been hitting the weights a little bit. Chase Hooper trying to put on a little bit of weight, a little bit of size, you know what I'm talking about? And, he just went out there and it turned into a technical scramble on the ground. Both guys trying to get their submissions off. But at the end of the day, Chase Hooper emerges victorious in that, gets Jordan Levitt the tap. So, as Jordan Levitt was walking out, I heard them talking about that he was ready to cancel this fight at any moment because his wife was about to go in labor, or possibly in labor. I believe she was about to go in labor. So as soon as I heard that when he was walking out, I felt bad because I had already placed my bet on DraftKings, and I was like, oh, he might not be that serious about this fight. And he didn't really seem like, he didn't do bad, but, he just wasn't, he didn't look like he was as engaged in the fight as Chase Hooper was. So shout out to Chase Hooper. He advances on. We had Peyton Talbot go out there and put them paws on Nick Aguirre. Bro, Nick goes out there in the first round against, fresh from the Contender Series, Peyton Talbot. And the first round looked like he was really going to try to impose himself. First round looked like he was really going to try to put those hands on Peyton. You know what I'm saying? And, try to ground him, try to back him up against the cage, kind of grapple him, take him down to the ground, hold him down. And then, once Peyton got back to his feet, and then as we go into the second round, Peyton started putting those paws on him, started throwing those kicks. And, it was just clear that Nick was outclassed. He was outgunned. He was outclassed. And as they talked about the commentators talked about, he eventually broke Nick, including he gave him the symbol that he was going to break him in between rounds. So that's basically what went down. Talbot advances on. We'll see what the UFC is going to do with him. Not sure if you can call him a prospect just yet. The UFC wants him to be a prospect, but we got to see him against some real good talent to see where he stands. But right now, looks like a pretty flashy striker. He's got a lot of swag, a lot of confidence. So we'll see where the dude goes from there. Moving on. This is one of the fights I wanted to touch on as far as having low fight IQ. So in this fight, we had Luana Pinheiro goes out there against Amanda Ribas. Now, first round, Luana looked exactly how I thought this fight was going to play out. She's putting those hands on Amanda Ribas, and Ribas is wide open. She's striking with her head up in the air, not a lot of head movement at all. And she is just she's being taken to the woodshed. And she just keeps getting caught with a 1-2, over and over again. Just over and over again. And she's just wearing the damage, and she's just taking these shots. But to her credit, that's one thing you can never ever discredit about Amanda Ribas is she's got that dog in her and she's tough. And she just kept going. She kept taking the shots. She just kept going. And when you want to talk about low fight IQ, when we get into the second round, it was like Luana, because Amanda Ribas was pressing even in the first round. That's what she does, is she presses. And as she was pressing forward, Luana was able to time her and catch her with that 1-2 over and over again. The second round, Ribas did add in a few leg kicks, which probably broke the rhythm of Luana, but still, it was just like, it seemed like she kind of abandoned the game plan. And she kind of fell back a little bit. And I will say in a lot of Luana's fights, it's like she only has the gas tank for about a round and a half, and then that really goes away. And when she starts to lose that gas tank, she really starts to abandon the plan. And so it was just like, I don't really know what was going on, but she just started to crumble. And Amanda Ribas just stayed with it, stayed in her face, kept striking, just kept doing her thing. And, eventually the fight went on, and Amanda Ribas wins by decision. So, I'm sorry, she actually didn't win by decision. She ended up finishing her at the end of the third round. So, I don't know. It's not a whole lot to say about that, but what I will talk about is, man, I feel like Amanda Hebos wears the damage bad, but also I feel like she's taking way too much damage in her fights. And it's only a matter of time before she gets in there with a striker that's gonna put her down and put her out. You know what I'm talking about? Send her to nappy nunu time, put her to sleep, you know what I'm talking about, taking that long nap. And, you know, I mean, bro, her striking with that head up, and Grant, she comes in and she's kind of bobbing and weaving with her hands are up high. And every time, another thing about her is when she barely evades a strike or blocks it, she's like she barely evades a strike or barely blocks anything, and she's like a toro, like, you know what I'm saying, like she's got the red cape right here in the bull's chart. She's like, and I'm like, Amanda, look, you're gonna get caught with 4 or 5 headshots right after this. Don't act like your defense is that tight, you know what I'm saying? But nevertheless, man, I don't know where she goes from here. I was watching some of the MMA fighting content with Mike Heck, and he was actually saying he had a good fight that I wouldn't mind seeing, but Amanda Hebos might catch them hands, get that work. But he was talking about Lupi Godinez versus Amanda Hebos. I think that would be an outstanding fight. I'd have to go along with Lupi in that one. I think Lupi probably sleeps her. But nevertheless, man, shout out to Amanda Hebos, goes out there and gets the win. Let's talk about Jonathan Pierce versus Joanderson Brito. Jonathan Pierce gets out there, and the round one, he is controlling, he is doing his thing against Brito, right? He's doing his thing, and then at one point he's got him on the ground, and he's doing his regular, you know, hold a guy, throwing a slide in, a few elbows, you know, a few punches. Good solid ground and pound, because, you know, Jonathan Pierce, he's got good wrestling, good grappling, so he's holding him down, he's doing his thing. Then at one point he got a little, Django Unchained on him. Like, he's like, try to do something, boy. Try to get up, boy. And I'm like, whoa. It was a little weird. And in true, like, just poetic justice, you know, just great, Brito just takes the shots, eventually starts to get back to his feet, and did exactly what Jonathan Pierce dared him to do, and he did something about that boy. And he ended up cinching up a ninja choke, and, you know, you could tell Jonathan Pierce was just like, oh my God, I'm going to have to tap. And you know he didn't want to, but he tapped. And Joanderson Brito goes out there and gets that win. You shouldn't have taunted the man, as well as you shouldn't have taunted him in a Django Unchained type of way, and with the boys and stuff. And nevertheless, Brito goes out there and gets the win, gives a crazy post-fight speech with a lot of explicitives along with Portuguese in it. But nevertheless, it was pretty cool. Christian Leroy Duncan goes out there, does work against Dennis Tululin. It was good to see that he's got a little bit of grappling. You know, he's willing to take it up against the cage, willing to take the fight to the ground. So that was kind of cool to see. I'm going to skip over some of these fights as there wasn't a lot to see. Only other 2 things I wanted to touch on when we're talking about low fight IQ. First, we got Lucy Padalova stepping in there against Aileen Perez, who is the fighter that got her twerk on after the fight was over, which was like really weird to see. Nevertheless, bro, Lucy goes out there and she's getting dominated round 1 and 2. And in the 3rd round, she finally gets the girl to the ground, or the lady to the ground, the fighter to the ground. She gets Aileen to the ground, and Lucy starts to kind of work a little bit of ground and pound, you know, kind of catch her with a few elbows and everything. And I'm thinking, this is it. This is your chance. You got her on the ground. You know what I'm saying? She's clearly tired. You know, by that point, Perez was kind of worn out from all the work she put in the first 2 rounds wrestling. And I'm thinking, this is your chance. Go ahead, you know, put that mark on it, put that stamp on it. Go ahead and, you know, take her out. And instead, she kind of peppers her with a couple shots. And then the next thing you know, she starts trying to cinch on the choke, which it was clear that there was a little bit of space in between the arms there, so Perez could breathe. And Perez just rode out the rest of the fight like that. And I'm like, What type of fight IQ do you have? Where's your coach yelling out what you should really be doing? Or was she not listening to the coach? Because I'm like, you're not getting ready to choke this girl out, especially not with that choke, nor should you even go for that because she's tired. You have her on the ground, you've mounted her. The best thing you can do is just keep throwing punches. Keep throwing elbows till you can't throw them anymore. Because you could tell the girl was getting tired to the point where you could have sent her you could have gave her a lot of shots that eventually quite a few of them would have went on to be unanswered. And more than likely the referee would have stopped the fight. But no. Wipes her hands of her career, throws it away. I mean, you barely got back into UFC. Why did you do that? Like, why? I don't even understand what the thought process was on that. You know, you don't even go for the choke. Don't worry about the choke. You know what I'm saying? Position over submission. You know what I'm talking about? So anyway, you know, shout out to Aileen Perez. And then after the fight, you know, she starts twerking it up, which she's known to do, which I found to be really weird because they kept showing her son out in the crowd. But nevertheless, it looked like the commentators had a wonderful view as expressed by them. So there you go. That was kind of weird to see. The other last piece of evidence of low fight IQ in the UFC. This one comes from referee Mark Beltran, the guy with the extremely large, long beard that's all braided, and he like tucks it into his shirt or into his belt, or he's tucking it somewhere. Bro, this homie, this referee. So this was a fight between Trey Ogden and Nicholas Mota, in which for 3 rounds straight, Trey Ogden takes Nicholas Mota to the woodshed, beat him like he stole something, stayed light on his feet, kept sticking him with the jab. There was nothing Mota could do. Trey Ogden obviously had the length, he had the reach on him, and there was nothing he could do. He was one step ahead. As the commentators talked about, he was in tremendous shape in this fight. He was looking good. It was looking like he was about to get the win. Mota tried to go out there and do a little bit more in the 3rd round, but he was just outgunned and outmatched. Eventually, the fight goes to the ground, and Trey Ogden cinches up. I believe he was trying to get a head-arm choke on him. And while he's doing this, Mota has his fist kind of right here, and he's kind of pressing pretty much on the lat of Trey Ogden to try to get some sort of space in there to breathe, which he was accomplishing that, but the choke was getting tighter and tighter. Meanwhile, Mike Beltran, who's always got to put on his deepest, most authoritative voice, and he's like, show me something, and it's like, and immediately, the commentators are calling this out. They're immediately like, he's all right, you know, no need to stop this, he's all right, he's still with it, and the referee is just yelling, show me something. And it's just like, and you saw where this was going. You saw that Mike Beltran was itching to stop this fight. And the next thing you know, he prematurely stops the fight. And Mota wasn't out. He didn't tap. He was just, he couldn't, it wasn't like he could answer you because he's getting choked. As well as he can't stop to give you the thumbs up because his free hand is like literally bracing on the lat of Trey Ogden to try to get space for him to continue to breathe and not go out. So there wasn't going to be anything he could show you. He's not giving you a thumbs up in this particular position. Horrible fight IQ by Mike Beltran. For what I understand, I thought Mike Beltran trains, so he should know this, but maybe he don't train. Maybe he don't pay attention to training. I don't know what he's doing in training class. Maybe he's the guy that brings the snacks. I'm not really sure, but nevertheless, this homie messed up this fight, and so then fight gets called off. Trey Ogden's line, and the only silver lining was, oh, well, at least Trey Ogden got the win because he was dominating the entire time. Next thing you know, when they're reading out the results of the fight, it gets ruled as a no contest because Mike Beltran goes and I guess reviews it with the referee outside the cage and decides he did make a mistake. So then Trey Ogden gets robbed of his fight bonus, which he made it clear about that on the mic. Even was like he didn't really even care about the ranking or about the win-loss record. He just wanted his money. And then Mota, it wasn't like he was going to come back. He was probably going to go out. Regardless, he was going to lose by decision. But still, you can't call it early. So, there that was. Horrible Fight IQ by Mike Beltran with his deep voice and his tucked in beard. So that was all crazy. Nevertheless, that was UFC Vegas 82. So we got an off week this week from the UFC because it is Thanksgiving week. So, I'm going to be dropping a couple videos this week. We're going to try a couple of things, what I'm saying? I appreciate you guys for joining me for another episode of Matter of Fact MMA. And I'll check you next time. Peace.